At Christ College. I'm doing an English course that involves journalism and interviewing. We got the option to pick a topic we're interested in and go to ask teachers of public. I chose what are your thoughts on Andrew Tate and some follow-up questions on that topic.
Hi there, I'm with.
Chris War.
What are your thoughts on Andrew Tate?
I think Andrew Tate's quite dangerous because he mixes up this message which is quite positive about being a man with some really negative and quite toxic messages towards other groups of people, for example, women. And by blending those things together, I think some people who aren't aware will not be able to disentangle those two messages, and that's why I think he causes so much harm, not to mention the fact that he obviously has a lot of influence.
Right. What are your thoughts on his recent arrest in late November last year?
Well, I think that, people aren't generally arrested unless there are quite strong suspicions of their having committed crime. And I think that the message or our insight into the fact that he has actually committed those crimes might answer the question as to whether we should be listening to what he has to say.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Hi there, I'm with.
I am Mick Stillwell.
What are your thoughts on Andrew Tate?
That he's a pretty reprehensible version of humanity.
What are your thoughts on his recent arrest last year in late November?
Well, it was kind of inevitable when you hear all the things he'd been voicing beforehand, like his motivations to move to Romania and the reasons he did it and the way he made his money. That it kind of seemed inevitable that he would be arrested eventually.
Do you think he deserved to go to prison?
I don't really have an opinion on whether he deserved it. I do feel like his choice to move to Romania because of their lax laws, because of bribery, because of their lack of legal transparency, he definitely has made it hard for himself to get neutral treatment. He chose to move to a country that doesn't have high quality rule of law. So now in his going through that judicial process, he's not going to get the benefit of a country with a really rigorous judicial system.
Do you think Andrew Tate is changing people's mindsets?
No, I think he reflects the fact that there is already a group of people who think women are less than, that we are property, that we are not deserving of respect as much as men. I think him being arrested actually kind of showed young people how reprehensible his ideas were. Whereas beforehand, I feel like when he was talking about all his Bugattis and his cool possessions and his giant house and stuff, the other messages that he was sharing could slip through, and maybe young people wouldn't be ooh, this man's disgusting as much because they're sucked into all the flashy stuff. Whereas now it's yeah, he's a sex trafficker, he's a pimp. It's kind of more obvious that, oh yeah, he's made all his money through really disturbing a behaviour.
Yeah. Has he made an impact on your life or people around you?
I don't think he's had a direct impact on my life, but I think his views and the people... okay, let me think about that one again. I think the kinds of views he represents have impacted people. We know as teachers that young female staff get less respect from students than young male staff, and have to be better at room management in order to achieve the same level of concentration and focus.
Yeah.
I think that reflects sort of these views that are held that somehow women are kind of not as shouldn't be as respected or in as much of a position of authority. So I don't know if his views have created it, but just young people are being exposed to that worldview through him, whereas maybe have been exposed to it through different means, or maybe not as exposed to it before.
Sweet, thank you. Hi there, I'm with.
Travis Dixon.
What are your thoughts on Andrew Tate?
Well, it's a very vague and general question. Let me think. My thoughts on Andrew Tate. Can you be a little more specific?
What are your thoughts on him, all of his quotes that he's putting into the world, and what he's done to with the society about women?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think I can see what he's doing by, obviously he's been very successful in saying outrageous things which generate a whole bunch of controversy, which then makes him more popular, and obviously his goal is popularity, so then he can sell stuff and make money. So he's been successful in doing that. When I've listened to what he says, typically I'd simplify it into, when he talks about women, I find what he says to be untrue and just deliberately, I would hope deliberately antagonistic to get a reaction, and it's something that I wouldn't think people should listen to. However, when he talks about self-discipline, what it means to be successful, or he talks about like self-improvement, I should say. So when he talks about self-improvement and himself, I agree with a lot of what he says. So when people say they like Andrew Tate, what I'd hope young men are saying is they're responding to that self-improvement stuff he's talking about, and not his approach to women's side of things.
What are your thoughts on his recent arrest last year in November?
I don't follow the news, and I don't follow social media, so he got arrested in Romania, right? So I don't know a lot about it, is what I'm saying. I'm curious to see if the charges are upheld. Yeah, but that's all. Yeah.
Has his words affected what you or other people around you?
I know it hasn't affected me. No. But I know that he has influenced other people, and I had a conversation with someone who was saying this. They felt a bit down and out and unmotivated, and then he listened to one of his TikToks, I guess, where he's talking about just, get up, do it, stop stressing, stop worrying about it, just do it. And then he suddenly, the guy who I was talking to had a sudden boost of energy and motivation to get it done. So I do know that he does have that influence on particularly young men.
Right. Is he irrelevant to you?
Irrelevant. He's relevant in the sense that he's obviously having an impact on teenage boys whom I teach, and he's so he is relevant in that regard. I bring him up. We in psychology class we're talking about depression, and so we watched a clip of him talking about his take on depression. So my job is to educate young men. He's having an influence on young men, and then therefore by proxy he's relevant. He's not relevant to me in my personal life or how I go about things though.
Sweet, thank you.
Hello, my name is Finn Harrington and I'm a Year 11 student at Christ College. I have interviewed Nick Lidstone, who plays hockey for New Zealand, Canterbury and the same club as me. He left Christ College in 2019 and is now at Canterbury University. I also interviewed his dad Warren Lidstone, who is a teacher here at Christ College, and his coach, Dean Munt, who coaches the Carlton Redcliffs Premier Men in the Christchurch Premier League. I was very interested in this topic because Nick is in a career that I'm interested in pursuing myself. Interviewing Nick, I was able to find out about his journey to becoming a blackstick, what it takes to make it at the top level, and what happens when you're playing for your country. What roles do you believe that you played in supporting Nick as his dad during his sports career?
So the role I had was actually suggesting the idea of having a look, take him along, and then it was him wanting me to go and practice against him. So on Sundays we'd go and practice in a turf somewhere, and he wanted me to go along and drive him there and hit a ball to him and all those kind of things. So that was probably my initial roles with him for hockey. Later on, possibly helping him with some fitness.
So even now that he's at the top level, you're still helping him out a bit and still...
Yeah, to be the stop-go person, to tell him what the time is, yeah.
So you'd say that as he was growing up, he was always pretty motivated to keep going and keep getting better and wanting to be, I guess, the best that he can be in a way.
Yeah, and it's the intrinsic motivation of he wanted to be the best he could be and wanted to be better than everyone else.
Yep.
And wanted to compete with people who weren't better than him.
Yep.
So it's an internal, intrinsic thing, not set by a coach or anything else.
Yep. Was it always a goal for Nick to become a black stick?
Yeah, probably not necessarily a black stick, but as going through, it was about challenging and playing against the best players he could play against, because he aspired to be like them to get better.
Yep.
I would say not necessarily a black stick, but yeah, probably more so in the last 5 years, more had that desire.
It's about probably improvement as much as anything else. But then, of course, as you improve, you then get better and you then have that aspiration. Cricket wanted him to train 12 months a year, and he was very close to a professional contract with cricket. And they wanted him to train 12 months, and then the same thing for hockey, that for him to develop, he had to be training for 12 months and playing 12 months and be available 12 months. So he couldn't do justice to both, and so he had to make a call in the end. So I suppose the original question, was it black stick's the goal? No, I think the challenge was the goal.
Being a professional sportsman comes with injuries and setbacks, so I asked Nick how he deals with injuries when he gets them, as he's a person who's had many throughout his career.
I mean, it's not easy. It's normally quite a roller coaster.
In the last sort of 2 or 3 years, he's had quite a few issues with head knocks, so he's one of those players that's really mindful of his workloads. He's not someone who trains all the time. He's really, really mindful of the fact that his body can't really handle that, so he's got to be a bit more careful perhaps than other players.
But I find, like, at times distancing yourself when you are kind of struggling with motivation, whatever, just find a little period to distance yourself from hockey, and then not getting too overwhelmed and put too much pressure on yourself to get back straight away and do everything perfectly. Like, it's just, you can't do that, otherwise you're going to burn out and just get over it.
It is important to take breaks from your career and balance it out with the rest of your life, such as things like spending time with friends and family. It was interesting to hear what Nick had to say about spending time off the turf.
You can't do it all 12 months of the year. You can't, do it every day of your life, and you've got to make sure that you keep finding things that you want to do, things to entertain yourself, things that you want to get better at outside of hockey, and injuries are kind of a good opportunity to find those other things as well.
Does Nick deal with feedback?
Pretty good, I think. I've certainly never struck any issues with him around receiving feedback. And again, because he is such an experienced player, out of anybody in our team, he's the one that is playing at the highest level at the moment within the team. So he's a pretty experienced person, and as I said, it's more likely most of the time that he's sort of the person that's providing feedback to others. But certainly if he ever needs feedback, whether it's from me or from any others within the team, he takes it on board. He won't always agree with it, but he'll always take it on board and either have a different perspective or just work with it. So, yeah.
I was interested what Nick was like to coach as a player. Here's what Dean had to say.
So Nick's pretty easy to coach because he's, I guess, such an experienced player. So he's been involved in hockey, pretty much at all levels. So he's played a lot of rep hockey, obviously. He's been involved in the New Zealand camps and the new sort of that wider New Zealand squad for quite a long time. So he kind of knows what he's doing. So he's actually really, really easy to coach. And in fact, he helps out quite a bit with the team as well, particularly with younger players, helping them as well. So, and as you know, he is a coach himself. So he's really easy to coach.
How does Nick use goal setting in his sports career?
Pretty more recently, a lot more talking also about, what is your goal? Because he was considering doing the Indoor World Cup, but then then through discussion he decided that wasn't the best thing for him to do, to make the Black Sticks.
Yeah.
And so probably a lot more recently it's been a lot more talking about, well, helping him plan where he might go and do and how to act to reach that top.
Yeah.
So still under that whole sort of banner of that support.
And now that he's at the top, does he have like different nutritionists and stuff like that?
He's had sort of nutrition talks and things and drug talks and things like that from about year 11.
Yeah.
But not necessarily any
Specialists, no.
No.
What are the processes that you go through when you're in that Black Sticks environment, when you're getting ready for tournaments, having training camps prior to games and things like that?
I mean, there's a lot of meetings. The big thing's really about clarity about what you're doing and all aspects of things. So, the kind of preparations and stuff is all very scheduled. So yeah, I mean, the whole time we're in camps and stuff, there's always a schedule of this is where we are every hour of the day and all that. But yeah, it's always about before a training or a game that you're 100% what your role is or what your aim is. So you'll be before each game or each training, each of the players has to go up to one of the coaches and kind of go over with the coach what their aims, focuses are for that training or game.
Yeah.
And we've been already given the training schedule kind of thing and what we're doing in the training. But so it's about trying to have a clear focus at each training, and then in a game having a clear picture of what we're trying to do and what our role is in the team and on the field. Because the worst thing is if you come off the field and you say that you can't really make the excuse of I didn't really know what I was meant to be doing in the situation, or I wasn't sure where I fitted in, because that's kind of the main thing that dictates how confident you are and your ability to want to influence the game.
What advice do you have for other players who are trying to reach the level of playing hockey for New Zealand?
It's very much a process of trying to test yourself against better players as much as possible. So, like, big changes probably for me happened kind of last year, where I first got more exposure to the Black Sticks environment and got to play against them and train with them more. And up to that point, there was somewhat of a mental kind of, I'm not good enough, and even though I can, do these skills, you get to the field and you wouldn't have the confidence to go and show your natural game, because you're like, oh, these guys are way better than me. So I think, the big thing is try and push yourself to, match up against the best players as much as possible, and also try and understand what your strengths are compared to everyone else. So, like, for me, I realise that I'm not that fast, and it's not a strength of mine, and so I'm trying to figure out, my position on the field has changed to be more of a defensive midfielder where I can pass well and move the ball well and control the ball well. So, just trying to figure out that, that kind of thing, rather than what was my strength when I was a younger age of dribbling and skill, has now become into like it fits in at this high level in the space of a defensive midfielder, distributing the ball, controlling the ball, rather than someone that is, due to a lack of weaknesses in other areas. I don't know, adapting yourself to kind of the level, I guess.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Robertson and I'm a Year 11 student journalist. Today I will be covering and looking into the treatment of refugees in New Zealand and the possible difficulties that can come when seeking asylum. It is known across the world that refugees are often treated differently to the original citizens of the country they have been displaced into. It is also known that in a lot of cases they have trouble when it comes to being accepted into the new country to seek safety. So today I will not only be looking at what New Zealand's laws around claiming refugee status are, but also hopefully finding out what it is like to be a refugee in the country. With that said, here is what I was able to gather. I first interviewed Andrew Lockhart, who is the Acting General Manager of Refugee and Migrant Services in New Zealand. I started by asking him about the process of becoming a refugee and seeking asylum in New Zealand, and what the stages and requirements were involved. This was his answer.
Yeah, okay. So asylum in New Zealand is based on fear of persecution, and you would first of all make a claim for refugee status. You can only do that inside New Zealand, so once when you're in New Zealand, and that would be with our refugee status unit, and they would then make an initial assessment of the claim, and they would then schedule an interview for you, and then you would come for that interview and tell them your story, and they'll ask you a number of questions around the claim and whether you what happened and the circumstances of that, and then they will send you back a the summary of the interview itself and their kind of findings from the interview, and then from there they will, if there are any prejudicial information, then you would be asked to comment on it, and then once that's done, you would then get a decision for refugee status, whether it might be accepted as a refugee, in which case then you would go on to apply for residence in New Zealand, or if you're rejected for refugee status, that you don't meet it, then you do have a right of appeal to the Immigration Protection Tribunal, and then they would also hear it. Basically, they hear it afresh. So that's the process there.
Next, I asked him how New Zealand defines the term refugee according to its laws and international obligations. This was his answer.
It's not defined by, it's in the legislation, but it's actually an international convention, the Convention on Refugees, and that's done by the UN. It's been in place since, I think, 1948, and we're a signatory to that convention, and therefore we take claims and process them and provide protection to those that need it. So, yeah. But the process itself and how that's done is set out in the legislation, but the convention defines what a refugee is.
Next, I asked him what type of support and services might be provided to help refugees integrate into society after granted access to the country.
Yeah, so just kind of for clarification, they have to be in New Zealand when you make a claim for refugee status. So all of our claims are either made when people are here and something happens perhaps in their own country, or they might be made at the border. But if you're found to be a refugee, then at the present time, you're referred to a navigator, and that navigator will assist you to connect to the services that you need in the community, and will assist you to in the process of applying for residence.
I followed this up by asking what supports refugees are given specifically after they have been granted citizenship.
They'll get a visa, and they'll get exactly the same support or the same services as a New Zealand citizen or a New Zealand resident would get.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
But it can sometimes take a bit of time to get the residence visa, because there's additional checks to be done once the claim is determined to grant residence. But once they've got residence, then they get everything that a New Zealander gets. So access to health, access to education, access to benefit, and there can be employment, and then all of those sorts of things, really.
I would have followed up this interview with another interview with someone who has been through the process of becoming a refugee, but unfortunately I was unable to get a response from the interviewees, and therefore am unable to provide first-hand answers to the following questions. The first being, can I get some insight into who you are and if you'd be okay with sharing the circumstances that led to your displacement and journey as a refugee? Because I was unable to get the information, I made a Google search about the individual I would have interviewed and found the following information. When the Taliban was ruling Afghanistan in 2001, after the United States had declared war, they did not feel safe remaining in the country, so they attempted to seek asylum in Australia, but were rejected, so they made a claim in New Zealand and, luckily, were accepted. My next question would have been, what were some major challenges you had to overcome as you became a refugee, particularly the point after you came to New Zealand? The same Google search told me that one of the struggles they faced was the fact that they were 8 years old in New Zealand and knew no English whatsoever. It was also hard when them and their family were denied asylum in Australia and were left with little options from that point. For clarification, New Zealand allows refugees the exact same rights as any other New Zealand citizen, and they are given no extra support on top of that. There are non-government organisations across New Zealand that do help settle refugees into the country, such as the Canterbury Refugee Centre or the Christchurch Resettlement Services, but none that the government provides.
Hello, my name's Callum and I'm a Year 11 student at Christ College. In English, I'm doing a course called the Newsroom. We were tasked to interview different people on our selected topic. My topic was teacher political bias. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Callum and I wanted to find out if Christ College's education system had teachers pushing their political views onto students. I decided to interview 5 people, all of who are on different parts of the political spectrum. Here's what I found out.
What subjects do you teach at school?
I teach psychology.
I teach English and media studies at the moment.
And I teach geography and history.
Are there many political aspects of your course?
Yes, at times there is.
There didn't used to be, but increasingly politics can come into it.
Politics definitely do. In fact, some of the courses that I teach have very strong political components to them. An example is a Year 12 English course that centres on the text A Clockwork Orange, which has in it a political and moral dilemma that we have to, as a class, navigate and make our decisions on.
Well, being a humanities and social studies teacher, it's expected that you would touch on those political issues, and it's hard to detach your political colour from the things that you teach.
I guess we do talk about the politics of things like artificial intelligence, and the management of all those kind of things, and where it's kind of reflective. It's kind of reflective of where we're at as a society, and so any artificial intelligence is going to be based around what we, as the developers of this artificial intelligence, believe and what we live in. So it's gonna be a subset of that kind of thing. But there's not like any sort of real in-depth discussion. It's just like being aware of that kind of stuff.
I would say that I try, and psychology is the scientific study of behaviour. So we try to keep everything grounded in research. But even research can be slanted politically. So I'd say it's political in the sense that it's relevant to current debates in mainstream society, but not political per se.
I can't help but be, or make some sort of statements, I guess, when you're talking about human nature and the way that people operate. I guess some of that does align with certain sort of types of politics more than others.
Do you mind sharing where you sit on the political spectrum?
Yeah, so I've only ever voted once in my life, which was for Greenpeace when I was young, and I was a bit of a hippie and socialist and save the world. Now I would say I am conservative.
I voted for Jacinda. I believe quite strongly that she is a really fantastic leader. I know that within that, not all of the decisions that she's made have always been the right ones.
Yeah, I've just left the centre at the moment.
It's difficult to pinpoint where, particularly for New Zealand, because the politics is very centrist. It's not polarising like in the US or any other countries. But I would say I'm centre-left.
So I would say that personally, I sit in the political spectrum on the left-leaning side. I think I have quite an affinity for capitalism as a organising principle, but not in terms of... I don't think that means that I'm right-wing, because I think a lot of my politics are quite socialist, to be honest.
Do you mind sharing why you sit that way?
Because of my background and what I believe in. Even though it might not have been administered as well as I had hoped from this Labour government, I still believe in the principles in which the party was originally founded on.
I had to think very carefully about why I feel like I'm conservative, because I support gay marriage. I'm pretty I support liberty. I'm okay with welfare, and I don't mind paying high taxes.
I guess I'm kind of socialism. People looking out for each other.
I think I've identified conservative because what it means to be liberal has changed, and so I have what are now maybe some outdated views, like men have penises and women have vaginas, and I think the biological distinctions between men and women maybe are rather valuable in many instances. So I'd say I'm only conservative, but only because when I see other people label themselves as liberal, I probably don't share a lot of those views, perhaps.
One of the reasons I do that is because the left parties have much more clearly pronounced supportive policies towards people who are gay, and being gay myself, I'm sort of voting for self-protection.
Do you ever get students in your class challenge your point of view?
I've definitely had students try and challenge me, and I'm willing to listen, but I don't think I've had students who have sort of effectively made me rethink what I think.
Not as much as I would like. We tend the more political things that arise in class that boys more want to talk about would be the lines of gender issues and sex issues and men versus women and men's rights versus feminism. That seems to be more the political, but not so much the financial aspect of politics.
I've had students try and argue with me that what I'm thinking is wrong.
I've had students challenging my beliefs in the past, and I'm always up for that. I like that debate. That I'm always open for people and for learning and kind of being proved right or proved wrong in some cases. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind the challenge, and they have in the past.
Yes, I definitely don't. Because I do share my political opinion, I would expect students to bring counter opinions and to challenge, like, based on different life experiences, some of the things that I might think as being quite fundamental. And I think that's also healthy. If they want to have a political discussion, then they should get to have one.
Have people ever done that?
Yeah.
Especially in recent times. I know we've got a lot of students here at college that we're not just into fans. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But them telling me that is not going to change my views.
Not really, but what I sometimes see in some students' faces the idea that they might disagree with what I'm saying. And when I see that and a boy doesn't challenge me openly, I'll always ask them to stay behind class, and I just say to them, hey, look, you might disagree, and I could pick up on their body language that they might disagree and say, look, I really like having the discussion, and I would never want someone to walk out of my classroom angry at something I said or really disagreeing and not feeling comfortable that they could have the discussion with me and even a conflict or, you know, a combative discussion. So, yeah.
How do you respond to that?
I enjoy it, and I feel like it's a mark of respect. If someone wants to engage in a political conversation, it means they're interested in what you have to say. And I think for students, I often want to think of myself as a sounding board or a person against whom they can push their challenges and test their ideas. And so I try and respond by giving them an argument so that they actually can argue their side. Yeah. Not because I'm trying to change their mind, more so that I can help them to articulate their view and examine it.
Do you think it's right to share your opinion on politics in a classroom?
I think that there can be some value in students knowing my political position, but I think there has to be a very clear line between them knowing it and my promoting it. And so I don't think it's good if I practice my craft as a teacher in a way that influences students' politics.
If it's I do. I think it is. I think if a student asks you a question, then you should be, I believe, you should be prepared to say what you believe and justify why you believe that. You know, we're all about education, and that means showing people the alternatives. You know, if you don't know, you know, I could say I support one party over another, but why? What is my motivation for that? Why do I believe that? And that way people can then hopefully, when they come to voting age, can make a decision that is based on facts rather than, you know, tribalism and the culture of celebrity that seems to be pervasive in politics and stuff.
By sharing, as in discussing the ideas I believe in, yes, but I don't think it should ever be discussed in a way that is intended to brainwash or indoctrinate. That's not ethically correct as an educator.
In some situations, yeah. I would like to think that I have a classroom space and relationship with my students where they know that kind of what I'm saying is my opinion and that they can share their opinion as well. Anything racist or bigoted or homophobic sort of views that line up with that, which some politicians do have. And we have had that here in New Zealand. Then I think, repress them.
I think that if we're not careful as teachers, we can tend to overemphasize the things that we have political interest in. I think that, for example, you can get departments of English that are largely run by female teachers taking quite strong feminist positions. And I'm all for feminism, but I don't think that it should be the only critical lens through which you should read texts. And so it's about balance as well as people being able to express their political views. I think ideally in a department, what you want is a group of teachers who are quite diverse in their views, and then students can encounter all sorts of different perspectives.
Thank you for listening to my journalistic piece on teacher bias in Christ College. I don't think that we have a current issue on bias at the moment. I would like to thank all the teachers that dedicated their time to being part of the interview, and thank you for listening.
Hello, I am Samuel and I am in Year 11. Over the past few weeks, I have been doing a project on why Christ College is such a special place. and I'm going to share with you today what my findings were. I talked to Karen Adams, who has been a boarding matron for over 15 years, and prior to that she had 2 of her own sons come through the school. Next, I talked to Ben Donaldson, who is in Year 13 and is Head of Environment. My next interview was with Mr. Randall, who is a PE teacher at college and is also a housemaster in Flowers. My final interview is with Ed Davidson, who is in his final year at Christ College and is also head prefect. Why do you believe that the college is so special?
I'd like to think Christ College is special. I've got 2 sons that have been through Christ College, and it certainly made a difference in their own lives. What I have seen in my 15 years as a matron in boarding, the connections that are formed within the boarding house, and are lifelong.
And do you believe that the house system is the house system unique, and do you think that it works?
The house system within boarding, I think, is unique, and I'd like to think that it does work, especially here in Flowers House, that the art of conversation that we have with the boys and staff, and the within the house and the boys in different age groups, and the mentor groups that you have, and the inter-house sporting activities.
And with what you've seen in your 15 years, do you believe that it lines us up for success later in life?
Definitely, it does. And it's not so much with your own year group, but for instance, the other day I met an old boy, and he was telling me that one of his work mentors is an old boy of Flowers House, and I knew this, and he's somebody in his 50s, and this young lad I was talking to is 24. So they look out for each other, which is it's unique to Christ College.
Do you believe that it creates a community, whether they're 20 years older than you and you never went to school with them, but
definitely
you have a community?
Because, for instance, knew somebody that was in hospital, and it was a year 9 from a day boy house that was there to see somebody who was in year 13. So that it's because they have that college connection, that understanding, and the values of the college that they hold with them.
What has made college so special for you?
Probably have to be all the opportunities that it gives you, such as the Duke of Edinburgh, which is a big program which is internationally viewed, and that's quite special to get you out and about, especially with the tramps and stuff. And also all the teachers are quite immersive and helpful, and they actually want to teach. And the subjects that you can take are quite cool, like agribusiness and the math and all the sciences and all this and that. So yeah, college keeps it all wide and open of things that you can do.
And how has the house system helped you since year 9?
Probably, especially being in a boarding house, I'd say that the house systems help because you get straight away a band of brothers that you can hang out with and share stories and help with work or do this and just help you keep social and entertained. You can pass the ball around, and also we have a good mentors that help us throughout the day, and our housemaster is always ready to lead the house, and we always get behind each other and into house sports and stuff, so it's been quite good.
Do you believe that college is a special place, and why do you think that it is?
Yeah, I think college is a really special place. I think what's really fantastic is that the school holds on to the long-standing traditions. You know, you look back at traditions of 175 odd years ago, there was no internet then, there was no billboards down the roads, there was no mass advertising that you boys are seeing nowadays. Things were simpler, there was family values, there was hard work, there was honesty, there was integrity, there was all those values that we hold so dear, you know, spirituality, respect, all the stuff that we, you know, kind of hold dear today, and so we hang on to those traditions, you know, our well-kept grounds, our well-groomed boys, our manners. Yeah, not, you know, some maybe don't buy into that's unfortunately their loss, but ultimately we hanging on to the real, true, positive traditions of what got us to where we are. But at the same time, we're open-minded, looking towards, well, what does tomorrow look like? What are the needs of the next generation? And we plant those seeds in your boys' minds to try and create a passion, a belief, a wow, an understanding, I can do this, I can take on these challenges. And then that's all wrapped up in the college spirit. So where boys will have each other's backs, where the boys will, it's not just about the trophies, the medals, the rankings. Those are nice, but ultimately it's more important to see a guy get out there, get stuck in and have a full go. And by having a full go, that inspires his mates to have a full go. And ultimately, I think that's why college, if we, you know, on a crude level, that's why we have so many national champions, individuals, all sports, because our boys know how to work together. They know how to be team men. They know how to be, and that ultimately translates into community. They know how to be community men, leaders in the community, and ultimately become success and pioneers in, pillars on which New Zealand is built. So I think college is really special because we get to the core of that at a schoolboy level. We plant the seeds for you to take into the rest of your life to become significant movers and shakers, so that when you're running your own businesses and families, you do so with those same, inverted commas, old school family values. But they're not old school, they're current school, they're future school, that they are family values. So let's not disguise them as old school. They are family values. And I think, through the chapel, through all our interactions, dining hall, at the sports fields, and that's what that's what makes it special. The relationships, hanging on to the past, dreaming big about the future, and enjoying the journey of the now, because the now is so quick. It's only 5 years.
And do you believe that the house system makes college unique?
Yeah, I think the house system is an outstanding system. I think having a boy a sense of pride in a place for him to go back to. Obviously, I'm wearing a boarding hat here, which is for me the ultimate. You know, where a boy has his own home, his castle that he defends. But equally for a day boy to have his kind of colours that he and his group of mates, their own little sub tribe within the larger tribe. I think what's great about the house system is you get to experiment, and so. As a housemaster, if I want to try something out, I'll bounce it off for the director of boarding or for the headmaster and say, hey, I'm quite keen to try this. What do you think? And at least if we try it and it doesn't work, at least it doesn't affect the whole school. But if it does work, then it can hopefully influence and positively motivate the whole school that we can make positive change. So I think there's a win-win through having a house system like that. I think also when you see a house come from behind, I think the positive that any house does, the passion, the pride, everyone wants to be a part of that. And so the more we're all copying that kind of positive journey, I think it's only good for the school. So ultimately, if we've got 10 different flavors, so to speak, coming together as one ultimate, I think that's what makes college really, really unique. And I think long may that last. The house rivalry is really special in that everyone wants to get stuck into each other for that 15, 20 minutes, But right at the end of every game, as you've seen, boys are right there to support and praise and acknowledge a good performance, win or loss, from an opponent, knowing, hey, you've stepped out of your comfort zone there and you've actually upheld college. So I think the house system is fantastic.
Why has college been special for you in your time that you've been here?
College has been special for me because it's so much more than just showing up, going to your classes and going home, like many other schools in New Zealand and Christchurch. It's all that extra stuff. It's the genuine care from the teachers, it's the genuine care from the other boys, and all the house sport, all the extracurricular activities, all the stuff that you wouldn't find yourself doing otherwise, such as choir and productions and debating, chess, all that stuff that you wouldn't find yourself doing if you went to any other school apart from college, which I think is so cool because it brings out the best in each boy, and it's definitely brought out the best in me, so it holds a special place in my heart because I've learnt to appreciate and become grateful for what it has to offer, even though maybe in year 9 I didn't quite have that sense of appreciation that I do now.
How's the house system helped you during your time at college?
Yeah, so similar to why I think college is a special place, one of those reasons is because of its house system. It's cool because as soon as you enter in year 9, you have a physical house that you can go to, your home base, morning teas and lunches, if you're lost. And then you have an immediate association with a year 13 who can help you, guide you, and be that sort of older brother. Or he could challenge you, and perhaps not be the nicest older brother. Either way, good character building. And knowing that, you know, you're associated with all year levels up to year 13 is awesome, I reckon. So you have that association, and then it's also cool because you have that rivalry with other houses, which brings out that house spirit and allows you to connect with other boys in your house even more when you're facing adversity, when the adversity is other people's houses. So house spirit and camaraderie and sense of accomplishment, the relationships you build through that. And then it's cool because then when you might have that rivalry, but then we'll all be in the same team versus another school, and we can channel that rivalry that we had against each other and, you know, be as one, representing the crest